Welcome to the Strategic Veteran, where we chart the course from service to civilian triumph. I'm Adam Peters, a veteran, entrepreneur, and your fellow navigator in the quest for a life of impact and fulfillment. My mission is simple: to empower you with the tools and stories that turn challenge into opportunity. Having walked the path from active duty to where I stand now, I understand the search for purpose that comes with hanging up the uniform. It's a path I've walked, with its trials, its tribulations, and its victories, and it's a journey we're on together. This podcast is more than just conversation. It's a beacon for those seeking to redefine our missions through entrepreneurship. It's about igniting the entrepreneurial spirit that lives within us, the spirit that compels us to create, lead, and make our mark on the world. Here we connect with veterans who have built businesses, sparked change, and found their purpose in the marketplace of ideas. They're not just surviving, they're thriving. They've transformed their service into startups, their experiences into enterprises, and they're proof that you can too. So whether you're scribbling business plans on napkins or stepping into the arena of innovation, remember, you're not alone. You're in good company. So let's explore these stories of transformation and take the first steps together on our path to purpose. Let's begin. Welcome to another episode of the Strategic Veteran, where we delve into the inspiring journeys of veterans who have transitioned to impactful civilian careers. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Ed Parcaut, a dynamic and results-driven entrepreneur with a rich background in the mortgage industry and a commitment to financial literacy and the real estate education. Ed served in the U.S. Navy for 5 years, achieving the rank of E4. His military experience profoundly shaped his career, instilling in him core values such as attention to detail, adherence to SOPs, and direct communication. After his service, Ed embarked on a journey to leverage these values in the business world, particularly in the mortgage industry. As the founder and CEO of Lending for Living, Ed has navigated numerous economic challenges, including the real estate drop in 2006. His expertise in marketing and business development has been showcased through a successful iHeartRadio show, Real Estate Jerky, which reaches between 50 and 70,000 listeners. Ed's ability to craft compelling stories and engage audiences has made him a sought-after speaker and mentor. Ed's commitment to helping others extend beyond his professional achievements. He is passionate about educating veterans and civilians alike on the importance of financial freedom and real estate investment. His best-selling book, Financial Freedom: Building Personal Wealth Through Homeownership, offers practical advice and insights to those looking to build wealth through real estate. Ed's diverse skill set includes customer experience, continuous improvement, relationship management, and team leadership. His unique perspective as a proud veteran of the United States Navy enriches his approach to client needs and aspirations, making him a true strategic veteran. Please join me in welcoming Ed Parcaut, a masterful storyteller, marketing expert, and advocate for financial literacy and resilience. Ed, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
No problem. And
Parcaut,
you're like everybody else. No one ever
I'll
says
fix
my
that.
name right.
I'll redo
It's
the whole
Parcaut.
thing.
So don't worry about
Dude, man, it's nice to have you here. So let's jump right in and tell everybody where you grew up and kind of what inspired you to join the Navy.
Well, so I went back and forth from Colorado to California, and then my dad got hairy cell leukemia from Agent Orange when he passed away when we were in Turlock, California, when I was 12 years old. So we ended up staying in California because that was where we ended up. And then I went through all the different schools in Turlock High School and everything. And then I thought I wanted to go in the medical field. And so I'm like, I heard all these horror stories of people who spent all these years going to medical school and then coming out and not actually wanting to do it. And so I'm like, okay, I'll join the Navy, be a corpsman, and see if I really want to be in the medical field. And that's why I joined the Navy, to see if that's what I wanted to do. And the reason I picked the Navy, they were the ones that came on the school and talked to me. So.
It's nice, man. Yeah. And corpsman, that's the best medic in the military, in my opinion. So how was your time as a corpsman? Did you actually enjoy it, or did you figure out like, hey, this isn't for me, and that's why you ended up getting out?
No, I actually, so when I went to boot camp corps school in San Diego, beautiful area back, this is late 80s. But great time to be down there because of all the different music scenes that were going on. I had a great time. But then I got stationed at Camp Pendleton at the hospital, which is a Marine Corps base, which was the best thing a Navy guy could be, is on a Marine Corps base, because if you're on any, other bases, they mess with you. They know your hair, that, you know what I mean? So I was at a hospital, and I tell people when I was in, it was like MASH. Not as crazy, but pretty much that way. Everybody just did their job, what they needed to do, and no one mess with anybody. I was stationed at the hospital for 18 months. And when I first got there, normally as a corpsman, you go to the wards and you work on the wards. Well, they asked, did anybody know computers? And I said I did, because at the time I had done some stuff on them. And so they sent me down to medical mobilization and planning, which had to deal with readiness teams, and had got a top secret clearance, all that fun stuff. So I dealt with readiness and disasters and kind of stuff my first 18 months in. And they were like, okay, well, it's coming up on your 18 months. You have a choice of either a ship or a specialty school. And this is what I asked this. I said, which specialty school is not on a ship? And they're like, physical therapy. I'm like, that's what I want to do then. So I went to physical therapy school, which was a great thing because I, got to know every origin and insertion of every muscle and the bones and everything in the body, and came back to Camp Pendleton to do my 3 months that you have to do before you go on to your next station. And they kept me there. So I ended up being almost 4 years at Camp Pendleton my whole time in. So, because I was in 5 years, 5 months, and 14 days. So, but who was counting? Well, it's perfect. You know what I mean? It's not like it's exactly 5 months. It was 14 days. And I always say as a joke, but who was counting? But when you're ready to get out, you're ready to get out. And when I use the Navy for what I think everybody should use it for, as a way to better yourself. I left a small town in Turlock, which there's nothing wrong with it. I just wanted to get
Yeah,
out and
no,
see the world. Well, I only got
I
to see
left for
San
the same
Diego and
reason, to the
Texas.
army, to just get out of a
And
small
then,
town. There was no industry there, no nothing. Everybody owns the farms. Either you work on a farm or you go teach. And I was like, that's not a life for me.
my grandparents had a dairy, so I worked out there after my dad died on weekends and summers, and I rode my bike out there. And that's how I got into cycling when I was younger, because I rode my bike for miles to work. And then after a while, I'm like, this is not what I want to do. And so when I was in the service, I got my bachelor's while I was in, went to school at night. And what's nice about when you're doing that, they help cover that cost when you were in. And then I started my master's right after that. And so when I was done, because I couldn't stay in the Navy as an officer because I didn't want to be on a ship. I would have been a line
Yeah,
officer
I
straight to
don't
a
think I'd
ship,
wanted to be
and
on
that's
a
not
ship
what I want.
either. So having gone through and getting your bachelor's degree while you were in, did that better prepare you for the transition out? Because what we're finding now is that the transition is this complete loss of identity, particularly, like for guys like me. I joined at 17, spent my whole entire career deployed, and then was medically retired 12 and a half years into my career. It's all I knew as an adult was the army and the military way of life. I had no idea who I was or purpose anymore. Did you have some of those similar feelings?
Well, when I was in, I was an EMT. Then I spoke at that's not spoke. I taught at the EMT school. I took, whatever I got into, I did it to the full extreme. So if I would have looked back now, if I would have done back then, when looking back, I should have done, which was get my LV in, go to school and get my RN, and then have that as a backup just in case. But I didn't want anything to do with the medical field anymore, because after being in the Navy, it was always do more with less every year. And it just got tiring, even though I enjoyed what I did in physical therapy, and where I did a lot of hydrotherapy, which had to do with wound care and burn patients and stuff like that. You could see the healing and the help and all that stuff. I really enjoyed that. It's just not something I like. I want to get in business. I want to own a business, do something in business. And the one thing I found out is veterans make great business owners, because you're given SOPs when you're in, you attention to detail, all the stuff that civilians don't have from college, even though they just don't have that. It's not the same thing. And it's not, you have to learn it. And we learned it by making our freaking beds and other stuff that we did. And we're going, why are we doing this? Why are we folding these things this way? And that's what it was all about, that.
Yeah, for sure. We call them high leverage skills, problem solving, adaptability, leadership, discipline, all the things that you named. Yeah, no, for sure. So, what were your main challenges transitioning out of the Navy into civilian life? Particularly in terms of career field, did you know you were going to go straight into business for yourself when you got out, or did you have to figure that out?
I had to figure that out, because it was not something that, when I got out, I first was looking to get in the real estate industry, right? And when I got out in the 90s, it was not a good time to be in real estate. It's kind of like I talk about, I've been through major cycles with 2008 and all that. Well, right now is another major cycle because we went up 5% in interest rates in a 6-month period because of inflation and all this other stuff that people didn't get in the last election. They didn't understand what this was and what was happening. People kind of feel it now. So we're going to have, we need to have a change. And I'm going to get a little political here, but either the current administration has to do a 180 like Clinton did, or they got to be removed and put in somebody else in office, because other than that, they're not going to make any changes. They're all about spending money as much as they can. And we're when we have the interest on the debt is greater than the national defense budget, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a terrible problem. So what motivated you to get into the mortgage industry, and how did that influence you establishing lending for living?
Well, so when I was in, so I got out and I did a couple of things. I ended up working for a computer company back in the day. And back then, it's different than it was now, where back then you couldn't just get the computers we have now, like the Alienware and all those things. So you can get those really amazing computers. Back then, you had to build them. People just made certain computers a certain way. So I created a system through the military exchange systems to actually sell computers and have them modified the way you want them. And I created a whole program for a company, and I did that for a couple of years. And I was my first mistake in business where I took a contract to the wrong company. Which I didn't know any different. I've never been in business. No one ever taught me that. You don't learn that in business, going to school, getting your master's and all that stuff. They don't teach you that. So I knew that was coming to an end. I was losing that whole thing that was falling apart because of the company that I took it for. Then after that, by that time, other companies had come in and did what I did. So there were bigger name companies, which I should have done in the first place. Went to one of those companies. Let me write. So I apologize. Uh, my neighbor owned a mortgage company, and he's like, you ever do mortgages? And it was funny because when I was in the service, one of these guys I knew, he was doing stuff through insurance companies as mortgages. And I didn't understand at the time because I was going to school and I really didn't focus on it. Uh, so I was like, okay, I understand that. But then I got into the mortgage industry and from my neighbor, and I was like, wow, this is great. This is money. This is helping people. At the time I was taking people from 13 to 9 and they loved me. And then, people doing stuff. And then we had that whole industry had an issue for a year and a half, where normally we go through an 18-month period where rates go up a little bit, but only 1.5% to 2%, not 5%, where it stops the whole market from doing anything. And that's kind of where we're at. So there's so many loan officers who are hurting right now and actually got out of the industry. 100,000 of us got out of the industry in the last year.
Wow, that's incredible. I bought my first house at 21 in '06, and then we all know what happened in 2008. So can you talk about overcoming kind of that challenge with your business, with the real estate crash in 2008, and maybe help me understand what actually happened back then? Because I still am trying to figure out how my house was worth X amount of dollars one day, and I come back from a deployment and now it's worth basically nothing.
Yeah, so what happened was back in 2000, from 2002, so about 2004, they started these programs. And if you watch the movie The Big Short, they explain pretty much what happened is the bond rating agencies rated these certain programs as AAA when they should have been rated as D's or E's. And if they would have rated them properly, nobody would have done them, those programs. But basically, they were 100% financing. Unlike us, our veteran loan, which is 100% financing, but we have the lowest default rate of any loan out there, with the VA loan. But people, bought these houses, but it's way more than that. All right, these programs are part of the problem, but if you go back 31 years from 2006, really 2003, back 31 years, there was something that came into play called Roe versus Wade, and it plummeted the birth rates for the next decade. So we're building all these homes in 2003, 2004, 2005 for all these people that we think are coming to the table. But what's happening is at the new building, all the new home places, people are buying two and three homes with stated income programs and all this, and not putting anybody in them. They're thinking they can flip them, do all this stuff. And then what happened is all that came crashing down because of those programs. And rates went up, and then those margin calls came, which what I mean by margin is those margins had a 6% margin on top of that adjustable. It was a fixed rate for a couple of years and then it turned to adjustable. Those programs is what caused the problem. And you have to look at the fact it's all about the rating agencies, that they should have went to jail. That's who should have went to jail.
Yeah. Yeah. It cost me a bankruptcy. So yeah, it was.
That's one of those things that happens, but bankruptcy allowed you possibly to keep the place and have them.
It was a combination of other things. I got PCS up to Fort Lewis. I still had the house in 2011 when I PCS, and I hired a property manager to take care of it. And she didn't do her job. She called me about 2 years later, right after I got home from Afghanistan. She's like, "I haven't collected any rent from your tenant in 3 months." I was like, "Yeah, I'm well aware of that because you haven't given me a check in 3.5 months or whatever." I like, "What are you doing here?" And it wasn't feasible at the time to be flying back and forth across the country to go deal with that. So finally, in order to get my bankruptcy discharged, because some other situations while I was deployed, I just surrendered the house in the bankruptcy and just washed my hands of it. I was like, this is way easier than trying to deal with, hiring a shitty property manager or anything else like that. So
Yeah. And that's too bad because the house would be worth a lot of money today.
yeah, I know. Hey, lessons learned, right?
Well, and right now, one of our issues right now is we don't have enough inventory nationwide. We didn't build enough homes. There's certain places that built, a lot of homes, Texas and other places, but they still need more homes. I'm in California. We're almost 3 million homes short in California, and they're not, we can't build them fast enough, and we can't even build them right now. Builders aren't building because of where the interest rates are, and what people are coming out to buy the homes. There's just not enough of them because they're afraid because of the interest rates. So interest rates need to come down in order to see this change. We're right on that edge of 1970 right now, where inflation helped. If you own a home, it helps you a lot. If you don't own a home, it hurts you because then you eventually can't get into home ownership because the houses are so expensive.
I keep hearing that as a big problem now is like, the current generation is just not going to be able to buy a house. I remember we just closed on our house here in Florida in September, but we took a hiatus from even looking for like 18 months because it was an all-out war of people just paying cash and overbidding like crazy. And I was admittedly super sketchy because I had gotten screwed the first time I bought a house because I didn't know anything. So that kind of left a scar for about 15 years, you know what I mean? And it's just insane. And even with the VA loan, I still think we're at like 6.5% interest right now.
Yeah, and that's about where they are even today. I was looking at somebody right now. I was looking at somebody today to buy, and we're right around 6.5, 6.625. So
You see them coming down at all this year? I know the Fed keeps talking about not changing anything. We expect them to come down, but what do you think with your expertise?
well, first you have to understand that what the Fed does has nothing to do with mortgage rates. What the Fed does has to do with overnight rates to banks, the prime rate, those kind of interest rates, the money that banks lend each other, that kind of stuff. It has nothing to do with mortgage. But what they do is they tighten up the money supply to slow things down, or that if what they do help with is if they're buying mortgage backed securities, which is the loans, then that helps with the actual rates and everything else. But what happened was because they didn't act as fast as they should have, the mortgage market already was like, okay, the rates were going up and up and up because they're like, this is inflationary. We see it. It's automatic. It's going through the roof. And that's the thing is these things, I don't want to say they're alive, but basically they know what's going on, and those rates go up faster. But so they have nothing to do with those mortgage rates, even though when they do certain things, mortgage rates either go up or go down. and they're sold on the secondary market. One of the issues that we have right now is, if I'm going to buy it, so when we do a loan, somebody has to buy that loan on the secondary market. If you're doing a VA loan, VA doesn't buy it, they just insure it. You do a FHA loan, they don't buy it, they insurance. It's sold on the secondary market. No longer do you go to the bank and shake the guy's hand and says, give me the loan, and the loan sits here for 30 years. It doesn't do that. It's sold on the secondary market. And that's right now, in order for me to buy that loan, say I want to be the investor and I want to buy that loan. Well, I need 4 years to take payments to make it worth for me to take that loan. Well, if you know anything now, you potentially could refinance in a year, definitely 2 years. And so you're not going to keep that loan for that long. So we have to pay them a premium for them to buy those loans up front. And that's why rates are higher than they should be. Rates are about 150 basis points higher than they should be because of that built-in premium.
Yeah, no, I get it. You wrote a book called Financial Freedom, Building Personal Wealth Through Home Ownership, and it's helped many achieve their financial goals. What inspired you to write that book?
Because I qualify people differently than other people. I do it differently. I look at things differently than other people. So what I wanted to do is I try to teach people how to do it and other people, and I got tired. So I wrote the book so I can send it to my clients. I can send it to other people, and they can understand the process and understand the whole thing. Because a lot of times loan officers make it like it's so difficult for you, and it's the easiest thing to get a loan. The easiest thing. They want to make it seem difficult when in reality it's very easy. The first thing we look at is credit and what you need to do for your credit if it's not in the situation. Then we look at your income, because if you're not making enough money, let's go get you a better job so that you can own a home. And then we look at assets. If you're doing a VA loan, you just need money for closing costs, and sometimes you can get that from the seller. I have people right now who are getting the money from the seller, and they're coming in with nothing. My son bought his first home. He's in the Army. I didn't tell you, he was an airborne medic, and then he got rid of the airborne. Then he was in the cavalry, but I guess they're shutting down the cavalries now. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that. I've kind of tuned out to what's going on in the Army since I left.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's in. He told me, we just saw him last weekend, and I don't know where I was going. Oh, so when he moved from Alaska to Washington State, I told him, you need to buy your house there. You need to buy a house because they give you so much to live off base. It's almost the same as the payment.
So is he a JBLM up there?
Except for a few $100.
Where did he buy at? Tacoma? Yeah. Oh, out in Yelm. That's a good place to buy because I know
he's on the lake.
Yeah. I loved it out there. I lived up there for like the last 10 years before we moved to Florida, and I watched home price. It's just not I couldn't afford it on what I make now. I mean, some of those houses up there for what we have here in Florida, it's double the cost right now. It's insane up there.
Right, but you have that thing called humidity.
We do. Yeah. It's in full force. Summer is here, my friend. I really like the idea of you writing a book like this because I don't think it's a belief. I think it's just a fact is that financial education, financial literacy in the United States is terrible, right? Would you agree with that? At all. So that being,
just like when I was a kid, there was auto body, auto mechanics, there was welding, wood shop, all those different shops, so you could learn a skill. Not that you were going to go into that career, but you learned a skill that you can still use today to do stuff, your own stuff. They don't teach. And then there was home ec, which actually taught some of this and other stuff, but there is none of that these days at all.
Yeah, I had it, and I graduated in 2003. I had a mandatory home ec class, a mandatory shop class, and then I think your junior or senior year, you could go I forget what they called it, but it was tech school. You would go to another high school across town and learn how to work on auto body, but that was more career oriented. It wasn't particularly in the school. I was amazed to find out that they got rid of driver's ed in schools now. That was a big part of like that one class everybody wanted to take when they were a sophomore was to get their driver's license. And that, yeah, of course. Why would we, teach people how to adult in society in a place that we send them to for the majority of their lives? It's
And I forget where it was, but there was an instructor who was teaching his students how to work on vehicles, the whole 9 yards in the school. It was a high school, and he had them all go take the test, like you would have to if you went to a specialty school outside to go work. And they all passed the test, so they can go and work as a mechanic at all the different shops. Which that just saves you money and time, because you were working on it anyway. I worked on my vehicles when I was in there. I was dirt road poor. I mean, after my dad died. And that's the only way to put it. I mean, we moved from the decent side of town to the other side of town, and our driveway was dirt. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it, man. What would you say the most common things that you find as far as fiscal education are lacking in your clients or just in general, the veteran population?
Well, the veteran population have it. You sign on the line, that is your down payment, right? And most of them don't understand budgeting and know how to do certain things. And those things you need to explain to people, because you need to understand what your numbers are. I mean, and don't get me wrong, not everybody's perfect. I'm not perfect at this. Even to this day, everything's not always the way it is. If you're a business owner, you do the best you can, because sometimes you don't have control over things. And, that's where I am right now. But one of the things I find is when people come to me who don't think they can purchase, like, it's the funniest thing. They'll say they'll have a 700 FICO score, they have money, and they have a great job, and they're wondering if they can own a home. And then I have other people come to me with a horrible FICO score, no money, what's okay job, thinking they can purchase, and I have no idea what I'm talking about.
It's funny how that works out, huh?
Yeah, not because I explain to people, it's like these. It's I want I if people ask me all the time, when's the best time to buy, and our joke used to be, well, 10 years ago or today. But the truth is, it's the moment you think about it is who you should get a hold of somebody like me and say, hey, I'm thinking about, I want to buy a home. And because I think everybody should own a home. It's how you change the trajectory of that family for the rest of their life, because then everybody in the household will want to buy. Yes, it's going to be much more difficult, but I'm in California. It's always been difficult to own in California. I remember coming back here as a kid before my dad died from Colorado. We owned 20 acres there with, trailer on it, whatever it was. But then we came here and they couldn't afford to own. And so we rented. But that was in the early 80s. And and that's how it is. I mean, prices are expensive, but our incomes are higher in a lot of places here in California. You do different jobs. I tell people, go get a better job, go become a nurse, or come before, that nurses make bank here in California. I mean, they start off at like 120, $140,000 a year. Yeah. And then before you know it, they're in the 200s. Yeah, and then so we sent our daughter to a school, um, outside of California, because there, in certain states, nursing isn't as popular, not popular, but not in demand as other things. So we sent her to a school that was one of those states. It was cheaper because their school's here, but you go through 4 years for a 2-year degree, and it's like, why waste that time?
Yeah, I know in other states it's competitive. It's a lottery system to be able to go to nursing school too. I have a friend up in Washington that went through nursing school. She had to apply 3 times before she could go. And yeah, no, I totally get it, man. Um,
But there's other places to go to get that same thing. Like my daughter, when she went to that school, and I can't think of it now because she only lasted 6 months. Because it's different these days. When we were in the service, I don't know if you were, but here's a payphone. You didn't have a cell phone. These kids these days have cell phones and all the with them, even in boot camp.
yeah, that's strange to me. I think I was one of the last probably classes or a few classes to go through. I mean, I remember being in the battalion AO at the barracks and having to stand down on the payphone to talk on the payphone. I remember those days, man.
Yeah, stand in line. You weren't the only one. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just mentioned that you think everybody should own a house, and that's how you change the trajectory and start building generational wealth. And I think a lot of people, they hear about how you can, build financial freedom through real estate and home ownership and all of that, but I don't think it's really explained well out there on the internet. So would you mind kind of walking us through what that process looks like and how buying your first home is kind of the ticket or the gateway to building generational wealth?
Yeah, and it can look in many different ways. Right now, I tell people if you have a child who have them buy their first home, either a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. They can live in one of the units and rent out the other one. Fannie Mae just came out with a program that's a conventional loan with 5% down to buy up to a fourplex, which typically, if you're buying, oh, it's a very good deal because typically in the past, if you're buying over a duplex, you'd have to put 15% down. If you're buying it as an investment, you're 25% down. So I tell everybody if you have a, so I tell everybody you have a kid who's going to buy their first house. So who cares if it's a single family home? They can do that once they get married and move on. Once they buy the first house as an investment. And I interviewed a lady on one of my podcasts. I was talking about it, and she's like, I did that. She's in a fourplex. She has two of them rented. She's renovating the basement, and she lives on the other level. And she's like, I don't even pay a mortgage. They pay it all for me. Yeah. And with your VA, so if you're a veteran, you have something over everybody else. No money down, no mortgage insurance. If you're a disabled vet, no funding fee if you're 10% or greater. That's huge. But what happens is you can buy a duplex, fourplex, triplex with your VA loan with no money down. You just have to qualify for the whole payment because veterans can only have loans with other veterans or their significant other, right? And that's so what that does is you can't use the rents because that I think that's comes into the whole thing about that's not what you're counting on other people on that transaction. I think that's how they look at it. I would want them to change that to allow people to use those rents like you can do on FHA.
And I think the cool thing about a VA loan that not a lot of people, I didn't know this. My brother-in-law and sister, they have like a whole real estate empire going on down here. I don't know how many doors they own, but I know it's a lot. And they're educating me on you can use basically your VA loan can be used as many times as you want. You just have to get out of one of the mortgages first, correct? You have to have it paid back off, and then you can continue to use it. No, that's not how it works.
No, because like if you had you so a lot of people in the military, they're at one duty station, they buy a house. They get transferred to the next duty station, they rent that house out and they can buy another house VA. But you have eligibility that you have to see what those numbers are. I just had a guy come from North Carolina. He got stationed here. He's a Marine, and he's doing the whatever recruiting. That's sorry, it's one of those days. He's doing recruiting, and he's like, and it was hard to find a house in their price point here in this area, but he owned a house there at 200,000, and he was able to buy a 400 and some $1,000 home here, 100% financing the whole nine yards. If you don't have enough eligibility, say you're short on the eligibility by $100,000, then you just have to put 25% down of that $100,000. And or if you're going to in the same town, so this is transferring kind of stuff. If you're in the same town and want to buy another house VA across the street or down the road, it's better to refinance out of that VA into a conventional and then buy the next one with your VA. Okay. Yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of people, but what you have to be careful is people tell you you can use your VA loan to buy an investment property only if you're going to live there. Yeah, and be careful of people telling you how to house hack and hack these things and do this with your VA. It could technically be illegal, and they just don't know that. I've been doing this forever. I've seen everything. And so when I hear all these stories, I'm like, okay, they're going to get caught eventually, and they'll understand that they can't do that.
Right. Um, you have a set of core values for your business that include attention to detail, SOPs, and being direct, which I really resonate with because I am not going to beat around the bush. I'm just going to tell you how it is. How do you think these values have shaped your business and all of the things that you're doing, and why do you think that they have shaped them in that way?
Well, being direct in the mortgage industry is the best thing you can be with your clients. This is what so don't get me wrong. And I've lost a couple of agents and clients because I'm direct. Well, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm gonna tell you how it is. The agent takes you out and makes you all happy about the house. I bring you back down to reality. I show you the true numbers. This is where it is. And a lot of clients, I mean, I'm okay repelling people who don't want to work with me so that I can bring the people who really want to work with me closer. And that's what you have to focus on, and you have to be okay with that. So whenever you do social media and all that kind of stuff, you have to be okay with repelling people, because then you bring the people you really want to work with.
Nice. And those people that that do want to work with you, that you are direct with, like, hey, this is what you need to do X, Y, and Z. Are you the type of mortgage, loan originator that tells his clients, like, this is a plan for you to be able to be on the path to buy your house? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I've had people on a 3-year plan. Yeah, I mean, I've had people where their credit had an issue. We dealt with it it took a while, it took a year to deal with a few things. And then the next thing was, all of a sudden, their student loan. They had a student loan. They had no idea that went bad. And then they had to deal with that, which is make so many payments through the system. So that is no longer, there's this thing called CalVERS. It's a uh, a- I forget exactly what it stands for, but anyway, if you're behind on any student federal debt, if you owe any federal debt, it'll be in that system and it'll have to be taken care of before you can buy VA or FHA.
Okay. And so for those people who have less than stellar credit, what are your recommendations, or what are some of the things that you do to help them improve their credit score? Because I also see kind of out there on the internet, there's a lot of those guys out there that claim they can fix your credit score and we can do XYZ and boost your credit 100 points in a month and blah, blah, blah.
The easiest way to boost your credit 100 points in a month is to pay everything down to 20% of your limit. I mean, if you're over, so the credit card companies want you to be at 10% of your limit, period. That's where they want you, sweet spot. But I say most people can't do that. So 30% is a good number. But if you're at 80, 90, close to your limits, you're being affected by that. That's affecting your FICO score drastically. If you can pay those down, and you'll see 100 points automatically go up. But if you're a vet, you, truly, if you're a 640, that's fine. But if we can get you to 680, it's a totally different interest rate. After 680, it really doesn't matter anymore with the VA. But that's from that six, a lot of people say, I can do a 580, a 620 FICO score, six. Yeah, I can, but why do I want to? I want to get you in the better range so that you get a better rate. But sometimes things happen, things have happened in your life. And I tell people, don't focus on worrying so much about your scores. I mean, things are going to happen that eventually might destroy your FICO scores because of, loss of job, loss of this. You can't stress, but if you have a mortgage, always pay your mortgage on time and let your other credit cards, those other things get the hits, but not your mortgage.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Always pay the mortgage first. Got to keep the roof over your head.
Well, it's just that if you ever want to do anything, they look at that. Hey, were you late on the mortgage? If you're late on all the other stuff, a lot of that stuff will go away eventually, and or you can work out deals with it to pay it off.
Yeah, man. What are your primary goals and aspirations for the next few years for your company, and where do you see yourself going, and how do you see that impacting the real estate industry?
Well, see, until the election, I have no idea. And I don't want to be one of those, oh, it's got, the problem is with the inflation, if we don't get it under control, we're going to be in the 70s again, and into the 80s, which means rates are going to continue to go up. That's going to stop people from purchasing because the rates are so high. Right now we're at, in 2021 and the first 6 months of 22, we were putting people in such low interest rates. I was telling everybody, we are messing this whole thing up. We're putting people on interest rates and we're not going to see it. So existing home sales were like 85% of the market up until recently. And I said, we're going to drop this thing down to like 45%, 30 some percent. And we're at 35% of existing homes is what's on the market because it's only death, divorces, or job transfers. And even the job transfers, a lot of people aren't moving because of that, because the rate that they have on their house is so much cheaper than the rate they can get where they're going to, and it just increases their payment so much. I call these low interest rates abusive relationships because you won't, it's comfortable, but you can't make the change you really want to make the change because it's going to hurt. And and that's exactly what it is. You're stuck into an abusive relationship with these interest rates. You have to do what you need to do and not worry about that. If you're in a point of life where you can, do certain things, do it. You can't focus on that rate. Keep the house and rent it out. Get a good property management company. There's a lot of good ones out there that will guarantee the rents. And because they get 10% of the income off of the rents each month, they'll guarantee kicking the tenant out, putting a new tenant in there. They find the good ones and use the good ones.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. From hard lessons learned, pick a reputable company. Don't pick the realtor that you went with who says she can manage your property.
No, find a property management company. That's all they do is property management. Yeah, because they guarantee certain things. An agent who says they'll do it for you, that's not the same.
I totally get it. Do you think we'll ever? Yeah, you totally did. Do you think we'll ever see interest rates that low again in the 2s and 3%?
Well, the reason they were that low is because we all thought we are going to die. Basically, that and they shut down the whole economy. We were in a recession. We need a recession to get rates to go back down. And the question, are we ever going to see this recession that we keep saying is coming? The problem we're having is we have, 8 million migrants come across our border and taking jobs and doing certain things. And so we have such low unemployment. It's really hard. And the numbers that they look at and certain things that they changed, our government has changed how they look at the inflation numbers. So back, and this is not just current administration didn't just change it. Other times have been changed, where they don't look at home costs, right? The cost of homes anymore. They look at rents, what the rents are for inflation, not because housing goes up so much more drastically. So they said, we're going to change the CPI and the PPI and the personal consumption expenditures, what they look at for inflation. This was done, I think, back in the 80s or 90s. And now, so they don't really look at the real factor. This inflation that we have, even though they say it's around 2.9, I guarantee it's like 7%. But because of look at when you take out the food, the energy, the other stuff, that's the expensive stuff. Why are you taking that out? That's what we pay each month. That's what costs us so much money. That's inflationary. That's what we look at. Well, we look at the core. No, look at the everything.
Yeah, the things that everyday people are spending money on to live, that's what you need to look at. That's the indicator right there, right?
Right. And that's not what they do because they want to show these different numbers. And I'm not saying we need to fix our country. We need term limits. If we put term limits in, it would fix our country because then no lobbyist would pay these guys as much as they pay them to push these things through because they're not going to be there after 8 years. They're going to be gone.
Yeah, I agree with you. Something needs to change.
That and veterans need to get more in politics because two veterans, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, you can have an argument over things and then go have a beer.
Right.
Because you understand that each party has a difference of opinion. You might not agree with it, but that's okay. But at least you can I want to know. And that's why I do what I do with the radio shows and the podcasts. I want to find out why people think the way they do. Because I used to get in trouble. My wife would squeeze my leg at a party or something like that. Shut up, Ed. And now I can do it all day long.
I love it, man. Based on your experience, what advice do you offer to veterans who want to become entrepreneurs through the transition into civilian life?
Do it. There's so many programs out there that's available to them. Just go find them. I mean, not the transition program tabs, those stupid things that doesn't work. Because I do another podcast called Helping the Brave, and I've been doing it for a few years. And one thing that I find is I'd love to scrap the VA and then just go more into the insurance aspect of it to where you can go anywhere to get service. And the insurance should be paid at 120% of the, payback, because Medicare doesn't get taken everywhere because they don't pay it back as great. Well, make that VA insurance so you can take it at a Kaiser. You can go anywhere you want to go. If they did that, we would get rid of a lot of the problems. And I'm not knocking the good people at the VA. They're just not enough of them. There's not, it takes forever. But if you could, and that was the one thing that Trump did for veterans in the last 40 years better than anybody else was, if you need help, go get help somewhere. and we'll pay for it. The problem right now is because I've talked to a few people that work at the VA that retired from the VA after 30 years. There's a backlog of approving those. That's a problem. It shouldn't have to get approved. It should be, you need help, go get help.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. Prime example, I made a dentist appointment in October of last year that's not till August of this year. Just to go to the VA for the dentist. That's insane. And that's actually one of the first good plans I've heard proposed about doing away with the VA and turning it into an insurance that pays 120%. That would probably fix a lot of things.
That would fix everything. You wouldn't have guys committing suicide in the parking lot. And ladies, not just that. And I dealt with a lot of this. So this year I'm the president of my Rotary. I don't know if you know what Rotary is, but so my year I was like, I'm a vet. I want us to do more for veterans in our community, do certain things. And so I had a couple people come in. One was Operation Surf. They have a documentary on Netflix called Resurfaced, and they help vets with PTSD. They help vets with, bilateral amputee and all this stuff. And there's one guy, he shows his bowl of pills that he was taking on a monthly basis, and he was ready to commit suicide. And he said, I'm just going to go surf, and then I'm going to go back and kill myself. Well, he surfed, and he totally changed. And there's certain programs like that are out there. They need more grants. They need more money to help more vets. And then I had another guy come over. He was in the prison system. So he was a 10-year Marine, got out, and then did something stupid and got incarcerated for 23 years. And he realized after being incarcerated that PTSD, you have two choices. It's either going to kill you or you're going to go to prison, because when you go to prison, it's like dying. And so he created a program for vets once you get out to never go back in. And he created this program while he was in. It got funded by the governor of California, $4 million. And he hired somebody to run it until he got out, and he ran that program. And he has a TED talk on it. I interviewed him on one of my Helping the Braves. And just things like that are what we need more of, and helping more. And my whole goal with my podcast I do is eventually put together everybody I've talked to and every service that's out there in one place, so that, because you can Google everything, but you have no idea. I want to have a full description of what they talked about, everything about them, so you understand where to go. I had one lady I interviewed. She sent me a whole thing for the one state she's in. She's like, here's everything I've done. I came across helping my husband, and it will help you put that together. That's my goal. The other thing I did through Rotary this year was interviewed a guy, Dave Albin, through Podmatch, and he was the fire guy for Tony Robbins for over 20 years. I worked for him, and he's a vet, and he wanted to do a fire walk for veterans because it's never been done. He was asked on one of his podcasts he was interviewed on, and she's like, have you ever done a fire walk for veterans? He's like, no, and she's like, let's put one together. Well, they tried to put it together on the East Coast. It got denied, kind of because of the political bullshit that you have. And so they're trying to do somewhere else. Well, in the meantime, I interviewed him. I said, let's do it. And I put together, and we had it in April. It was a 2-day event. You can come to either one of the days. But I had the same problem for 4 months. I fought with my local city. They didn't want to set a precedence of having open flame and smoke in California. You need to get approval through the smog board, all that bullshit. And so I finally went to the county. A friend of mine who was the guy at the county, he's like, you can use our parking lot. We don't care if you do that. We don't. And I talked to the person over at the parks. They said you can use any of the parks and do anything you want, Ed. And then but for the first one, I wanted a really nice location so we could do a lot of video, so that going forward, we'd have that video to sell, because we're doing another one, May 3rd of 2025. Come on out. You can come to this one, May 3rd of 2025. Be on a Saturday. I'm going to get about 5 to 6 different veterans to come and talk about what they've been through. The one we did, you can go to Operation Firewalk right now and kind of see who we had this last year, but it was Dave Sanborn. Sorry, one of those days. Anyway, he was the last guy who got off that plane that went on the Hudson. So he, well, he's not that guy. He's the guy that was on the back who helped everybody get out, and he was the last one in. And when he got in the water, he's actually somewhat blind because the fuel that was in the water, made him say he has to wear glasses now. So he talked about that. It was a great thing for an hour, and then we had Dave Alvin, who is the fire guy, talk about everything about how to get on the thing. So it was only really about 3.5 hour each night, but we gave him dinner, we gave him everything. It was $45, and then we also gave him hold on, gave him a lighter. You can see that it says Operation Do No Harm, and then it had our rotary on the back. And yeah, so because that was a replica of the 1940s lighter that vets carried when they went to war, so they could remember home. So it was pretty cool. So Zippo lighter worked that out for us, and so so it was Operation Firewalk. We don't have our video on there yet. We're still working on it, but if you ever do something like this, get in writing exactly what everybody can and can't do, because I've had some people not steal our footage, but we had some people come to do the video, and they didn't create them for us first. They created them for themselves first, and then attached their company names to them. And that irritated the hell out of me, because I do this for veterans. I don't do that for self-promotion. I don't need to do it for self-promotion. That is the worst thing. And people who do that, to me, it's like, and please, this is going to offend a security guard. The security guards who can't become cops, right? I'm a security, and that's who that pissed me off. These people who didn't go in the service, didn't put the time in, are trying to utilize us veterans and what we've done for them to make money off of. And I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like that either. But I definitely want to come out there and check out a firewalk. I have Dave coming on the show here in a week or so, so it's gonna be cool to talk to him after having talked to you and talk about that experience. Reflecting on your journey, what's been the most fulfilling aspect of entrepreneurship for you? Because here we believe, the path back to purpose for veterans is through entrepreneurship for a lot of reasons, because you got all those high leverage skills that translate well into the world, because it's a never ending mission that you control here. You get to control the outcome of all of this if you work hard and stay disciplined and work on yourself. And it just, I don't know, I think it just fills your cup, right? Would you agree that entrepreneurship is that? It is purpose in itself?
Yeah, but you have to be careful, because when you do it it's different now than it was when I first started. Like, people come to me all the time, should I get in your industry? And I'm like, no. They ask me, what would you tell somebody who wants to get in the mortgage and real estate industry? Don't. Go get another job. Go do something else first. Do this so I'm telling everybody, get multiple streams of income now. Yes, you can have a company, but have multiple companies or other stuff. Have somebody run whatever that is. So if you're in, it's like diversifying in a portfolio in case something happens. Like, I typically, what I do is, before these times happen, I buy these certain not securities, but they're basically tied to the bond. So if the bond interest rates go up, I make money, so I can offset the fact that I lose money in this industry. What happened is I missed that by 2 days. I had something that I was holding, so I'd only get hit with a 15% hit instead of the 30%, which you get when you trade stocks. And I lost a lot. And so you have to be very careful. So I'm just saying, there's so many ways to make money today that we didn't have over the last.
Yeah, there's a ton of ways to make money now, and the internet is a prime example.
I mean, affiliate marketing alone. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
It just do something and start. And there is no overnight successes. I know you hear people, well, I did this, I sold this course and I made $70,000 before I even started it. Yeah, you did. But one thing I did run into is I interviewed a lady so I have multiple podcasts. I have my radio show, which is called Real Estate Jerky. We give you something to chew on. That's been going on. And I turned that. So how I got into podcasting is, with the radio show, even though we were on a station that had, that up to 51 to 71,000 listeners, which you're not supposed to call them listeners when you're talking to them, but just so you know. And I was like, how do I take that market and put it into what I've created over here into a different market? And so that's when I started uploading as a podcast in 2019, I think it was. And then from that show, I said, I want to do something totally different from my industry. And it's called Inner Edison. And that's your greatest compliments come from your greatest feats. And I interviewed business owners and what they, I want to know what your biggest failure is, so people understand that failures are going to happen. People think it's overnight success. It's 15 years of then overnight success for most people. I interviewed Brian Smith, who brought UGG to America, and he lost the company during part of that period of time, and he had to get it back. And people don't understand that. They think it was, great. No, there's issues. And so I enjoyed that podcast because I get to deal with business owners, right? And if you're ever going to start a podcast, you got to niche down who your client is. Niche all. Same with your business. You need to know who your client is, and most people do not know who their client is. And if you can intersect that, when you can take two niches and intersect them, like veteran business owners instead of business owners and veterans, if you can, then you really have something because you niched it down. It doesn't mean when you niche something that you can't still help other people. You just focus on that. My focus when I was first in the mortgage industry was only VA loans, only veterans. And then I got into doing more and more and more. And then now it's like I'm coming back. I ran away from the from the whole veteran thing when I got out of the service. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was in San Diego and I felt that they did not care about you at that time. 9/11 happened. Now people care. And that's so you just have to figure out what you want to do and figure out who you want to do it for. And so I've came back to the veteran industry to where now I focus when I talk on, because I do. And so even though our show is broadcast on, talk radio, we also do a daily show Monday through Friday at 8:30 on live, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And then I dropped over to YouTube, and it's, from that, it's called Real Estate Jerky Daily. And I tell people, I don't want all your loans. I only want your VA loans. Just send me your veterans. That's all I want. And I'm in an area that's not like Florida, Texas, San Diego. We don't have that ton, or Washington State, and that, or Alaska, where, you have this, here, park in front, veterans parking kind of stuff. There's veterans, but we maybe 5% of my market, if I'm lucky. But if I tell everybody I want that, then that's what I get.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how marketing works. Funny how that works, huh?
Well, that's all. We care, we trust, we appreciate where other people don't.
And to your point, I've watched a couple of bigger creators, one on TikTok. I've watched her start her little, educating veterans on VA loans and helping people through VA loan process. It's been cool to watch her grow on that platform, and just kind of as a case study for, if you take action and you figure out what you're passionate about and you do it to help people, shit really happens. It's like it really starts to happen. It's awesome.
And one of the things you want to do is don't run away from your haters. Embrace them, engage them.
I've heard the haters, they actually like almost double your growth, it seems like, right? Like
you want to engage them, because the people who love you will occasionally watch your stuff occasionally. People who have an issue, so what happened is I had a video go viral on TikTok, and it was I think it's at 740,000, which was a lot for me at the time. And I'm like, there was a few people saying he's an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Basically what I said is, if you want to save money on taxes, property taxes, buy a piece of land and drop a manufactured home on there and don't put it on a permanent foundation. Then you only pay property tax on the land. Some places is different. I'm talking about where I'm at. And because what happened is I had a guy who did that, and he wanted a loan. I said, I can't do a loan because you did that. And I thought at the time it was dumb that he did that, because I'm looking at it as the other side of it. But then I was like, okay, well, you can always slap because I did this on a few other things, put a permanent foundation on it in 10 years from now. And then you sell it as real property, and you didn't pay taxes on that whole real property of, instead of just the 200,000 for the land, now you got 450, right, for everything. So you did save money. And so I said that, and everybody was like, you can't do that. That's tax evasion and all this stuff. And so I engaged those people, and now I saw that it increased my numbers, because they will complain more, say more, and then people who really care about you. And then a friend of mine, Brian Galke, we do another podcast called Aces 53, which was from when I was in college. My instructor told me, remember 4 aces and a joker. and it had to do with sales. Attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, and smile as your aces. That's what you bring to the table in sales. The joker is that unique ability that you have that nobody else has, or something you've learned. For me, I sold by the phone. I didn't know I had a deep voice. I didn't know I came across the way I come across until I put headphones on. Didn't have headphones on your phone. You can't hear you. It wasn't the same thing. And that was my unique ability. Well, we do a podcast called Aces 53 because the first joker in the deck is the 53rd card. And it was only $25 versus 2,500. Instead, again, Aces and a Joker is a band, so we'll move on. And so we talk about this stuff all the time. And he is a facial recognition guy, where he can tell everything about you by your eyebrows, your nostrils. I mean, down to the T. You'd be shocked that he can tell you who you and everything and how you think about stuff. He did one, and he pointed to his thing, and he said, it was a misstatement about by your eyebrow, above your eyebrow, above your eye. And somebody's like, where else is your freaking eyebrow? And it went, and he did what I said, engage these guys. He on Instagram, he had 20,000 followers. He's at 140,000 followers within 45 days. And that video, I think, is at 3 million views now.
Wow. Incredible.
But it's, again, well, yeah, engage them. And because we used to say hide them and move on. No, engage them. They're gonna, and he's even told them, "Thank you so much for helping me. And what you're doing is increasing the algorithm. Thank you so much for doing that for me." And being honest, and that's what they do. And so engage them. Don't hide from them.
So in engaging with haters, because this is not something I've experienced yet. I know it's going to happen at some point. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I'm honestly, I'm kind of excited because that's the advice that I've been getting from everybody further ahead than I am, is like, just engage with the hate because it makes you grow faster. It truly does. But that being said, some of that stuff has to get to you, right? Like reading some of that stuff has to get to you in some way, shape, or form, right?
No, I don't worry about it. No, because I mean, think about it. People can call you a dumb shit or whatever. Does it, is it supposed to affect you? I've had more shit happen to me in my life than anything else. So what they say to me is not going to hurt me.
I mean, I guess that makes a lot of sense. Lean on your resilience from the time in the military, like
Think about it. How much stuff did we say about each other in the military in jest? We said some horrible things. Horrible. And we don't, and it was, a lot of it was racial slurs back and forth to both sides. And we didn't care what nationality you were. It was, that's how you dealt with pain and and things in the military, is that you joke and that's what you do. That's how you deal with that. In the medical environment, it's the same thing. I mean, that's how you dealt with stuff. And so for what people are I look to, what if my wife says I'm a dumb shit, then I'll take it in reason. But if it's somebody else, I really don't care. Right. I mean, think about it. It's got to be anybody. I remember, because I used to have a full head of hair, but I was walking into this. I was walking out of what was it? One of the Round Table Pizza here downtown Modesto, and I was walking out, and I let the door go, and the guy goes like, "Well, thanks for holding it for me." I go, "I didn't know you were a chick." Right. Actually, I said a little bit worse than that, but we'll just do this to keep it clean. And then he turned around and he's like, "Oh, you're bald." I go, "Oh, did you have to think long on that one?" I mean, it's like, what do you, come on, you could have went a little bit further. And I'm one of those guys that if you push me, you're going to pay for it, because I'm very quick witted and I can hit you. It's like how Trump can make nicknames for anybody that stick. I have my own thing. So it's,
yeah, so you're just gonna give it right back to them. Keep up or get left behind. I love it, man.
yeah. I mean, because what are they going to do? Throw a punch?
No, probably not. Most people won't.
Yeah, well, good luck. I've had that happen when I was in San Diego, going up an escalator. This one chick was coming down, and she looked at me and smiled. So I smiled back. Her boyfriend was one step behind her. He got all pissed. He followed me outside, took a swing, hit my hat, and I said, "If that's the best you can do, you might want to get back inside there."
I love it, man. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you, what social platforms you're on, where they can get your book at.
Easiest way to find me is just go to edparcaut.com. I'm Ed Parcaut everywhere. I have that unique last name, Parcaut. It's French, I know, but I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the places under Ed Parcaut. Or you can just go to my website, edparcaut.com. On there is a tab that has my book. You can click on it. It'll take you over to Amazon. You can purchase it at Amazon. But I give my book to all my clients when I deal with them, or somebody who reaches out to me, they have questions, I'll send my book. My purpose of my book is to educate people. You don't make a fortune off of having a book published on Amazon. That's not where the money's at. The money's at it's helping people. That's what I want to do.
I love that, brother. Thank you so much for being here, man. Any final thoughts or messages you'd like to leave them with today?
Yeah. Just stop worrying about buying a home. Just go buy a home today. You can always refinance in the future, but you're never going to have these house prices again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Parcaut. Thanks for joining us, brother. I really appreciate it. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.